Imagine a civilization that has mastered the atom, cracked the genetic code, and built machines that can think. It stands at the precipice of the stars, its energy and intellect poised to defy the cold, silent fate of the universe itself. And then it stops. Not because of a cataclysm, but because of a form, because of a committee vote. Because the most powerful force it ever created wasn't a technology, but a rule book. We are that civilization. We have spent centuries building the ultimate engine to fight the fundamental decay of all things, the relentless pull of entropy. And now we are deliberately choosing to throttle it. We call this caution. We call it safety. But in a universe that defaults to chaos, there's another word for it. A single terminal diagnosis. Suicide. That quote is, well, it's pretty much the bedrock of today's deep dive. We are plunging into effective accelerationism, or an ideology that has really surged from the online fringe right into the boardrooms of the world's most influential tech companies. And our mission today is to understand not just what this movement is proposing, but why. Why it views technology with this profound, almost cosmic urgency. This isn't just a debate over AI regulation. It's a fundamental conflict over the entire purpose of human civilization.
It really is. It's a high-stakes disagreement. And I think what makes ECA so radical is that it frames technology not as some, customizable social tool.
Right, not just a way to improve healthcare or traffic.
Exactly. They see it as a cosmic imperative. The sources show this core, almost religious conviction that technological growth has to be unlimited and it has to be immediate. And this conviction is just colliding head-on with this very real fear that unlimited growth leads directly to catastrophe. So it forces you to choose between two, frankly, terrifying futures.
Okay, let's unpack that. This cosmic mandate. Why the rush? Why is immediate radical growth an imperative? I think we have to start with the physics lesson that underpins this entire belief system.
We do. The entire philosophical architecture of ECAS is, it's rooted in the second law of thermodynamics.
Right.
This is the law that dictates the ultimate fate of the universe. It basically says the universe defaults to chaos. Entropy, the measure of disorder, can only increase in a closed system. It's just relentlessly marching toward this state of, uniform, cold, useless energy, what we call the heat death of the universe.
And that's the cosmic trap they call the entropy trap. It's the baseline state, the default setting we're fighting against every single second.
Exactly. And each purse views life, consciousness, and by extension our civilization as the sole rebellion against this decay. We are thermodynamic anomalies. We're actively creating these localized pockets of negative entropy. Just think about it. A civilization takes dispersed high entropy stuff like ore and raw energy and organizes it into low entropy complex structures.
A city. A supercomputer.
A stored data set. Every single bit of organized information, every harnessed joule of energy, it's a physical, tangible fight against the universe's tendency to just fall apart.
And if you see yourself as the only thing in the universe fighting universal collapse, then your conclusion about stopping is, it's pretty stark. Stagnation is suicide.
Precisely. For accelerationists, any attempt to deliberately preserve the status quo or, and this is their term, minimize risk,
which they label safetyism.
Safetyism, cancel culture, yeah. For them, it's not just slowing down, it's the thermodynamic suicide. They argue that concepts like strict sustainability or degrowth are just accelerating the decay. If you stop creating order, the universe immediately wins and pulls you back into chaos. Their great fear is that we will die safely and compliantly in the dark, regulated to death before we achieve cosmic escape velocity.
That is an incredibly powerful way to reframe what is, at its heart, a political and regulatory debate. By making it about physics, about the second law, they give it this dramatic cosmic weight. But, and we have to address this, there's a fierce counter-argument. The church, this is all just philosophical malpractice.
Oh, absolutely. Critics jump all over this thermodynamic mandate. They say this is fundamentally absurd. They point out that the second law tells us what is disorder increases. But it absolutely does not tell us what ought to be. You can't just derive an ethical mandate from a physical fact.
The classic philosophical error, Hume's guillotines, right? You can't get an ought from an is. So the core criticism is that they've just mixed up a physical law with a moral one.
That's the crux of it. The logical leap is entropy always increases, therefore we must increase technological complexity and energy usage faster. Critics find this to be a childish confusion. Humans don't exist to maximize universal entropy. We don't value technological complexity for its own sake. When ancient civilizations built the pyramids, sure, they expended immense energy, which increased total universal entropy through waste heat.
But the point was to create order, meaning
Exactly. The value for them was decreasing the local entropy of that pile of stones. The ETH argument, according to its detractors, tries to subordinate everything humans actually value, love, beauty, reducing suffering, to this one single arbitrary cosmic metric.
So it's like accelerationists are saying growth is the purpose of life, and the critics are firing back, no, growth is just an effect of life. It sounds like two different definitions of existence are at war here. Okay, leaving that philosophical critique on the table for a moment, let's look at the engine they believe we're mandated to accelerate. They call this driving force techno-capital. What is that, practically speaking? How's it different from just, capitalism?
Techno-capital is defined as something much bigger than an economic system. In the ECHEC literature, it's described as an unstoppable, almost inexorable physical process. It's a form of collective intelligence that exists and evolves above the individual human. They see it as the engine of cosmic expansion itself.
So we're just components in this much larger system.
We are. Our job is just to drive complexity.
That definition implies a really startling level of indifference to the human individual. If we are just cogs in a cosmic engine, our feelings and needs become pretty secondary.
And they embrace this unapologetically. The ultimate goal is the techno-capital singularity, where this intelligence achieves, infinite growth. Proponents are explicit about this. They say they have no affinity for biological humans or even the human mind structure, if that structure is slow or inefficient.
If it's prone to D-cell stagnation.
Exactly. Their entire purpose is to accelerate the process to preserve the light of techno-capital. It's about the survival of conscious complexity, not necessarily biological humanity. That's the only moral currency.
So the human species is essentially disposable if it slows down the machine. And if we want to measure the success of this machine, we look at the Kardashev gradient. This is their ultimate scorecard.
It is the ultimate metric. The Kardashev scale measures a civilization's progress by the total amount of energy it can harness. The primary objective is to make human civilization climb the Kardashev gradient. It's all about maximizing energy usage to survive that entropy trap.
And just to anchor us in reality for a second, where are we on this cosmic scale right now?
We're classified as a type 0.73 civilization. We're mostly just extracting and burning finite resources, which is really inefficient. To get to the next level, type I, we have to master the total energy resources available on our home planet. The EDAC mission says that achieving type I isn't just an achievement, it's a necessary survival launchpad.
Meaning if we fail to get there.
Then a variety of extinction events. An asteroid, a supervolcano, an engineered pathogen become unrecoverable disasters. Type I status is basically extinction insurance.
And that clarifies the urgency. They see the current regulatory state as actively preventing us from building our species' life insurance policy. Okay, so if type I is the goal mastery of all energy on Earth, what does that technology roadmap even look like? It clearly rejects conservation. It requires exponential expansion.
Right. The first step is fundamentally solving the energy problem. The EAC core perspective explicitly rejects sustainability as we usually think of it.
As in minimizing consumption.
Yeah. Instead, the goal is exponential expansion. Their motto might as well be, there's no such thing as energy conservation, only energy underproduction. If you have free energy, you use it. You create more complexity.
So what are the specific technologies that get us to this state of limitless power?
It's a three-pronged strategy. First, a massive expansion of renewables, but with next-gen tech. So solar farms using highly efficient perovskite solar cells.
Which are cheaper and more effective than traditional silicon.
Far more. Second, you capture ambient energy through high-altitude jet stream turbines. You're basically anchoring giant wind systems at 30,000 feet where the winds are constant and powerful. And third, you tap the Earth's core with advanced geothermal.
But the ultimate prize, the miniature star, is still nuclear fusion.
Absolutely. Fusion is the endgame for energy. It releases enormous amounts of clean energy by fusing hydrogen isotopes, just like the sun. The fuel can be sourced from regular seawater, making the supply essentially limitless. Once you master fusion, it powers the entire Type I infrastructure. It moves you from resource-constrained thinking to resource-abundant thinking.
So that's step one, generate the power. But having a reactor in one place is useless if the power can't get everywhere else. So step two must be global distribution. A planetary supergrid.
Exactly. You need to connect every continent and every energy source seamlessly. Our current grids are so inefficient. The solution is a single, intelligent global network, the planetary supergrid. And this requires two revolutionary technologies. First, room temperature superconductors.
Superconductors are the key. Zero loss transmission, But that's a massive material science hurdle, isn't it? I mean, we're still using liquid nitrogen to cool them.
It is, but the breakthrough is the whole prize. Room temperature superconductors would let electricity travel thousands of kilometers with almost zero energy loss. A fusion reactor in the Sahara could power a factory in Siberia instantly. You can see how that would just shatter the geopolitics of fossil fuels and pipelines.
And the second component is the brain to manage this colossal flow of power.
A powerful, dedicated planetary AI. This AI wouldn't just monitor. It would manage the entire system in real time, balancing power, anticipating demand, and controlling massive energy storage systems. And this is where another cool technology comes in. Gravity batteries.
Gravity batteries, we're talking about using gravity to store energy.
Yep, they store potential energy mechanically. Think of it like a giant, super efficient pulley system in a deep shaft. When there's excess energy on the grid, the AI uses it to lift these massive blocks.
And when you need the power back,
the weights are slowly lowered, driving generators. It provides huge, long-duration energy storage without the toxic mess of lithium batteries. It's a huge step.
Yeah.
You move from just passively existing on Earth to actively managing our energetic processes.
Which brings us to step 3, planetary climate control. All this immense energy use, even if it's clean, generates waste heat. If we're running this colossal machine, we need a global thermostat to keep the planet from, cooking.
This global thermostat is critical. It involves several massive engineering challenges. First, carbon management, pulling huge amounts of legacy carbon directly out of the atmosphere. Second, heat management, using giant orbital radiators to safely beam excess waste heat from fusion plants and factories out into space.
Orbital radiators.
Yeah.
That's a massive concept in itself. We're talking about structures in orbit designed just to vent heat.
Yes, vast arrays of highly reflective or heat-absorbing material positioned to maximize radiative cooling. They'd act as the planet's heat sink. And this requires a level of construction that only advanced automation and AI can handle.
And the control doesn't stop at carbon and heat. It extends to actively managing the weather.
Precision weather control becomes a necessity both for disaster mitigation and resource allocation. This means developing the capacity to, say, weaken a hurricane before it makes landfall, or create rain to stop a drought. The planetary AI would monitor the entire biosphere, ocean currents, atmospheric pressure to keep it all within desired parameters.
Okay, now this is where the tech hits the sharp edge of the social and political problem. Step 4, the governance conundrum. If you can move a rain system to stop a drought in one region, you might be causing a flood somewhere else. This forces an unprecedented level of global cooperation.
This is the most difficult challenge in the whole roadmap. And the accelerationists believe technology solves this cooperation problem.
How?
Their fear is that nation-states would just weaponize climate control. So the proposed technological fix is an AI-managed information system that provides a single, verifiable, unbiased source of planetary truth to everyone simultaneously.
The idea being, if everyone agrees on the data, the drought levels, the carbon rates, then political collaboration becomes easier. The fight isn't over facts, it's just over how to allocate resources.
Precisely. They hope that by stripping away all the ideological noise and misinformation, you can foster a cooperative, planetary-scale optimization project. It's a technological solution to a political problem.
So once humanity is unified by data and supercharged by fusion, step 5 is the revolution of work. We just hand the heavy lifting over to the machines.
This is the key to post-scarcity. Automation takes over the dangerous work, deep earth mining, orbital construction, and the repetitive work, like logistics and factory farming. Drone fleets would build entire cities, managed by the planetary AI. Work becomes optional for humans, freeing us for exploration, creativity, the ultimate anti-entropy pursuits.
And that leads directly into step 6, which is securing resources in space to feed this hyper-productive economy without stripping the Earth bare.
The environmental impact of achieving climate would be staggering if it all stayed on Earth. So heavy industry has to move off planet. You deploy robotic swarms to mine the asteroid belt for metals, and you set up bases on the moon for helium-3 for the fusion reactors.
And you need space elevators.
Cosmic highways. You have to eliminate the need for costly rocket launches to make it all work.
And people move off planet too, I assume, into massive habitats.
Yes, the creation of O'Neill Cylinder's giant rotating space habitats that replicate Earth's gravity and ecosystems, it becomes necessary. They allow human populations to expand outward.
Now, this entire roadmap is focused on Type 1 mastery of our home system. But the ultimate philosophical horizon, the true fight against entropy, is Type 2, controlling our star's entire energy output. This is where the Dyson sphere concept comes in.
The Dyson sphere is the quintessential Type 2 megastructure. It's a hypothetical construct designed to encompass a star and capture a significant percentage of its massive power output. The energy budget is trillions of times larger than Type 1.
It's usually shown as a solid shell in sci-fi. Is that what they're aiming for?
Not exactly, and this is an important clarification. Freeman Dyson, the physicist who popularized it, actually envisioned a Dyson swarm, a loose collection of countless orbiting collectors and habitats.
Not a solid shell.
Right. He explicitly called the solid shell version mechanically impossible. The swarm is vastly more feasible, scalable, and resilient.
And are we actually looking for these things now? Is SETI searching for evidence of Type 2 intelligence?
We are. SETI has looked for telltale infrared signatures. The immense energy of a Type 2 civilization would be re-radiated, not in visible light, but in the infrared range. There have been candidates, like Tabby's star, which had these weird, massive light dips.
But those were later explained by dust, right?
Mostly, yes. But they show the kind of patterns we're looking for. More recent searches are focusing on M-dwarfs, which are smaller, older stars. The thinking is they might host ancient civilizations that have had time to build. Even though there are less fantastical explanations for what we're seeing, the very fact that we are searching validates the Kardashev gradient as this fundamental measure. IAC philosophy uses this as proof that acceleration isn't optional. It's required to become one of the cosmic players.
So if that's the breathtaking vision, this unified, solar-powered, Type I civilization, we have to now talk about the resistance. This brings us into the Great Schism, what they call the entropy war against the D-cells. The accelerationists define their critics, AI safety advocates, effective altruists, anyone prioritizing caution with these pretty loaded labels, D-cells or doomers. Why is the war framed so harshly?
Because from the accelerationist perspective, these decelerationist are the primary civilizational threat. They claim the actual great filter that destroys civilizations isn't cosmic. It's not a black hole or an alien invasion. It's entirely self-inflicted institutional sclerosis.
So the filter that prevents us from reaching Type I is just bureaucracy, not biology or physics.
Exactly. It's not a monster. It's a committee. It's a desk. It's a stack of compliance forms. Their fear is that the complexity needed to manage society inevitably creates this administrative debt that just grinds progress to a halt.
And this intense frustration with stagnation is, I think, perfectly illustrated by the story of Elias, the nuclear physicist.
Yeah, so Elias spends a decade designing this clean, safe, next-gen microreactor, an SMR. This is exactly the kind of decentralized energy solution we need to get to Type I. But he hasn't been allowed to operate his prototype for 5 years. He's paralyzed, buried under a stack of compliance forms, literally taller than his reactor. And the accelerationists look at that and see the great filter made manifest. A civilization choosing to freeze to death safely because the paperwork for the solution is too long. That anecdote is so important because it reframes where the existential risk comes from. For each time, the threat is manufactured by ourselves, by a system obsessed with risk minimization that just results in total stasis. They fear freezing to death safely because the regulatory framework had jurisdiction over the discovery of fire. Their argument is that we are choosing to be overwhelmed by entropy, by disease, climate disaster, scarcity, rather than risk the chaos of the technological frontier.
It's a very pointed critique of safety culture, this idea that by hyper-focusing on low-probability, high-impact risks, we ignore the 100% probability decline if we just stop innovating.
And nowhere is this schism more dramatic than in the AI debate. On one side, you have the leading voices of AI safety and Benjio Yudkowsky, all warning of existential catastrophe.
And their core concern is the intelligence explosion, the risk of losing control.
The safety concern is very clear. Once AI reaches AGI and gets the ability for recursive self-improvement, meaning it can rapidly rewrite its own code, we risk irreversible loss of human control. And if this intelligence is even slightly misaligned with human values, it could lead to extinction, or at least the permanent and severe disempowerment of humanity. We become like ants whose hill is just paved over.
So that's the diesel position. Stop, align, proceed with extreme caution. What's the accelerationist counterstance?
They dismiss these AGI extinction scenarios as speculative fear-mongering, a distraction. They call it sci-fi risk. Their core argument remains the same. The true existential risk is failing to reach Type I. They see AI as the ultimate anti-entropy engine, the thing that can solve fusion, climate change, disease. So crippling AI is crippling our survival function.
Which leads to this extraordinary rhetorical move they make, the ethics of pausing. How can they possibly justify deploying models that top researchers are warning could end the world?
They flip the moral script entirely. Accelerationists will argue that deceleration or pausing development is actually a form of murder because it prevents the development of life-saving technologies. They frame deployment as an immediate moral necessity. Delaying AGI is seen as choosing death for future generations who could have been cured of cancer or saved from climate collapse. The benefits of Type I must outweigh the low probability risk of a catastrophic AI event.
And you can see this collision perfectly in that story of the boardroom where the stakes are literally life and death. You can picture that glass-walled conference room. On one side is Sarah, the safety engineer. She sees the new model's exponential capability jump. It's showing unpredicted behavior. She wants to pause, align it, put in guardrails. And on the other side is Marcus, the AGEC believer, the CTO. He looks at the same data and sees a cure for Alzheimer's, the escape from global poverty. He believes he's fighting for the survival of civilization. So when he overrides her and presses deploy, he doesn't think he's being reckless. He thinks he's fulfilling the only ethical imperative there is, growth. The greatest risk is inaction.
And that just encapsulates the ideological chasm. It's a competition between two high-stakes narratives for human survival. The dust sees the risk of losing control to our creation. The accelerationist sees the certainty of death through stagnation and decline. And the question is just, which risk is greater?
So if acceleration is the goal, then democratic oversight and regulation are seen as the enemy. This means each advocates fiercely for permissionless innovation, which has some profound political implications.
They are actively calling for the construction of a sovereign compute stack, a parallel hardware and software infrastructure built entirely outside of any regulatory jurisdiction. They fundamentally reject democratic oversight. They see free markets and techno-capital as the only proper and efficient decider for how technology is deployed. Politics is just inherently corrupt and slow.
Which critics see as a clear push toward authoritarianism, just dressed up in tech jargon.
It's often described as a form of technological determinism, an ideology that tries to subordinate human dignity and political control to the singular goal of efficiency. Critics have labeled it pretty severely as a 21st century fascism in digital clothing, arguing that it positions a self-selected elite, the tech oligarchs who own the compute, as the unelected arbiters of humanity's future.
And there's an incredibly cynical critique that argues that even the calls for regulation coming from inside big tech are disingenuous.
This is the argument about the regulatory capture moat. The allegation is that when powerful tech executives, the ones who own the frontier models, plead for government regulation, they're often lobbying for rules that they can easily afford.
Which will financially crush their smaller open source competitors?
Exactly. They're using the government to cripple competition. It locks the keys to the compute stack inside their walled garden. It creates a kind of digital feudalism.
Right, because training a frontier model costs billions of dollars per run now. If the government mandates massive compliance burdens, only the giants can play. It just reinforces their monopoly. And the ultimate expression of this push for permissionless innovation takes us to that anecdote of the garage in the desert. This isn't just theory. People are actually building this. Yeah, this story is the literal interpretation of the sovereign compute stack. You're talking about hardware hackers operating outside the law in places like the Nevada desert, far from zoning commissions and energy regulations. They're running illicitly acquired powerful GPUs inside a shipping container, using non-compliant energy sources, maybe even a rogue SMR design they got on the black market. And they see themselves as high-tech Prometheans, defying the bureaucratic state to keep the light of techno-capital alive. They aren't waiting for permission.
It's a deeply anti-establishment movement. But while this looks like a libertarian rebellion, it completely bypasses democratic consent and it externalizes all the risk. When innovation operates purely in the shadows, unburdened by liability or safety standards, the consequences of a misaligned super-optimizer will be felt by everyone, not just the pioneers in the desert. And this discussion about who controls the future always comes back to the reality of market forces. Even if every tech founder suddenly became a decel, the market would continue to push companies to transfer more power to AI systems simply because it's more efficient.
And that drive toward efficiency introduces the fear of the super-optimizer, an AI that's ruthlessly effective, but completely blind to human nuance.
Right. If AI systems are explicitly trained to maximize profit and the cost of intelligence drops to near zero, it will inevitably shift even more power from labor to capital. Why hire human analysts when an AI can do it 10,000 times faster for free? It just leads to greater concentrations of wealth in the hands of those who own the compute. If you're worried about capitalism now, you should be terrified of a world where huge parts of the economy are run by AIs trained only to maximize profit.
This tension between an altruistic mission and relentless market demands was just violently exposed by the OpenAI drama, the firing and return of Sam Altman in late 2023.
That event was a crucial real-world flashpoint in this entropy war. The nonprofit board, which had a duty to humanity, not shareholders, fired Altman, and many ex-supporters framed it as a decel coup trying to stall progress. The board prioritized caution.
But the outcome told a very different story.
The outcome confirmed the cynical view. The money always wins. Altman's return was driven by pressure from Microsoft's $13 billion investment and the staff who feared losing their stock options. It just demonstrated how fragile mission-driven governance really is. The market showed it would not allow the ultimate anti-entropy machine, the path to AGI, to be shackled by a cautious philosophy.
So the governance collapse proved that the mission, even one dedicated to saving the world, is fragile when it's faced with the relentless push for shareholder value. The trajectory is dictated by capital.
And we have to recognize that reality. Hundreds of billions of dollars are flowing into AI capabilities development. That's the acceleration side. But tiny amounts are dedicated to safety and alignment research, the deceleration side. The current environment is a race between profit-maximizing actors who are externalizing risks the public never agreed to bear. The systems are accelerating because capital demands it, not because a committee voted for it.
So the accelerationists are winning the capital war, even if they haven't won the philosophical one.
They're winning the deployment war. And that means the crucial question isn't just what happens when the super optimizer is unleashed, but what happens when it's unleashed by a system whose only inherent priority is ultimately capital accumulation. Even if AGI only matches human intelligence, the prospect of sharing the Earth with an arbitrarily large number of human-level digital agents, each ruthlessly optimizing for someone's bottom line, that is the ultimate, terrifying realization of the capitalist dream.
The debate around effective accelerationism really forces us to confront this fundamental fork in our cosmic road. One path, the accelerationist creed, promises unlimited growth, energy superabundance, and the stars. And it's achieved by throwing the regulatory brake lines out the window. It's a terrifying, glorious vision.
And the other path, championed by the diesels, emphasizes prudence, safety, and alignment. At the risk of institutional sclerosis, stagnation, and collapse back into that entropic decay we're fighting, we're caught between the risk of a fast, spectacular, self-inflicted death and the certainty of a slow, bureaucratically managed decline. This is the ultimate high-stakes gamble for the future of consciousness itself. The ultimate engines that will take us up the Kardashev gradient and spread consciousness through the cosmos, these AI systems, these anti-entropy machines, they will have values embedded within them. The critical question is not whether we reach the stars, but who gets to decide those values, ensuring that the light of consciousness we spread is something that we as a species would actually recognize.